My name is Marcus Whitman. I'm 63 years old, and until 2 weeks ago, I thought I understood what family meant. For 42 years, I've been a carpenter here in Burlington, Vermont. They've built over 300 homes in this community. Churches, schools, houses where people raise their children and grow old together. I built each one like I was building it for my own family. And this is the story of how I lost everything and what I had to build to get it back.
The October wind rattled through the suburbs of Burlington, Vermont, carrying the scent of dying leaves and shattered trust. Marcus Whitman, 63 years old with hands still rough from decades of carpentry, stared at the crisp legal documents trembling in his grip. The words blurred through his reading glasses, but their meaning cut deeper than any table saw ever had. "Dad, you need to sign these," Daniel's voice came from behind him, smooth as Vermont maple syrup, but cold as January ice. "It's what's best for everyone." Marcus turned slowly, his knees protesting, not from age, but from the weight of this moment. His son stood in the foyer of the house Marcus had built 35 years ago, when Daniel was just a prayer and his late wife Carol was still choosing paint colors. Behind Daniel, his wife Madison adjusted her designer handbag, her expression as calculated as the real estate deals she brokered downtown. "Best for everyone?" Marcus's voice came out hoarse. "Or best for your bank account?" Little Sophie, his 7-year-old granddaughter, peeked around the corner, clutching the wooden toy horse Marcus had carved for her last Christmas. Her eyes were wide, confused. She didn't understand why Grandpa's voice sounded so broken. "Mom's been gone for 4 years, Dad," Daniel said, his jaw tight. "You're living in the past. This house is too big for you. Madison found you a nice assisted living place in Montpelier." The words hung in the air like frost. Marcus looked at the staircase where Carol once sang while hanging Christmas garlands, at the dining room where Sunday dinners had united 3 generations, at the workshop door where he'd taught Daniel to use his first saw. "You're taking my house?" Marcus asked, though it wasn't really a question. "The house I built for our family?" "The house is worth $1.8 million now," Madison interjected, as if that explained everything. "The market's perfect, and technically, with Daniel's power of attorney for medical decisions, not for stealing my home." "We're not stealing," Daniel said, pulling a packed duffel bag from behind the coat closet. "We're helping you transition. You've been forgetting things, Dad. Last week you left the stove on." Marcus knew that was a lie. He'd been making beef stew for Sophie, the same recipe Carol used to make. He never forgot anything about that kitchen. "Sign the papers," Madison said sharp now, "or we'll have you declared incompetent. Dr. Harrison already said you're showing signs." Dr. Harrison, Madison's cousin. The pieces clicked into place like joints in a cabinet. Marcus looked at Sophie one more time. She mouthed the word Grandpa, but didn't dare speak. He set the unsigned papers on the hall table, picked up the duffel bag with the same hands that he carried Daniel home from the hospital 40 years ago, and walked toward the evening shadows. "Don't come back without calling first," Daniel called after him. Marcus didn't turn around. He couldn't let them see the tears. Not yet. If this betrayal hits close to home, don't just scroll past. Subscribe now, because someone you love might be facing this same heartbreak, and they need to know they're not alone. 24 hours earlier, Marcus had been teaching Sophie to build a birdhouse in his workshop, unaware his son was meeting with lawyers across town. The workshop smelled of fresh pine and linseed oil, a combination that had become Marcus's signature over 4 decades. Sophie sat on the worn oak stool, her small hands gripping a child-sized hammer, while Marcus guided her through marking measurements on a piece of cedar. "See, sweetheart," Marcus said, his weathered hand steady over hers. "Measure twice, cut once. That's the rule in building, and in life." Sophie giggled, her missing front tooth making her smile even more precious. "Grandpa, why do birds need houses? Don't they have nests?" "Sometimes," Marcus said, adjusting his bifocals, "even birds need a little help finding home." The workshop walls were covered with photos: Marcus and Carol's wedding, Daniel's first Little League game, The day Marcus's construction company had completed its 100th home for Burlington's working families. This small space held more memories than any museum. Meanwhile, 12 miles away in downtown Burlington, Daniel sat in a conference room at Brennan, Hayes & Associates law firm. Madison scrolled through her phone, calculating renovation costs, while Daniel signed document after document. "The cognitive evaluation helps," the lawyer, Mr. Brennan, said with practiced efficiency. "Any signs of confusion, forgetfulness, anything that suggests he can't manage the property?" "He forgot Sophie's school recital last month," Madison offered quickly, "and he's been leaving tools everywhere." Daniel shifted uncomfortably. His father had been at that recital, front row actually, with flowers for Sophie. And the tools? Marcus was rebuilding the deck, a surprise for Daniel's upcoming 40th birthday. "Perfect," Brennan said. "With the house in his name but you as power of attorney for medical decisions, we can argue necessity. The assisted living contract is ready. Green Mountain Senior Living, non-refundable deposit already paid." Back in the workshop, Marcus was showing Sophie how to sand the edges smooth. "You know what your dad loved when he was your age?" he asked, smiling at the memory. "Building model airplanes. We'd spend entire Saturdays right here, just him and me." Sophie's eyes widened. "Daddy built things?" "Oh yes, he was quite the craftsman. Still has those hands. He just uses them for different things now." Marcus's voice carried no judgment, only a father's enduring love. The irony was sharp enough to cut. While Marcus taught Sophie about creating, Daniel was across town, orchestrating destruction. That evening, as Carol's photo watched from the mantel, Marcus noticed Daniel's nervous energy at dinner. His son kept checking his phone, and Madison wore that calculating look she got before closing a big real estate deal. "Everything okay at work, son?" Marcus asked, passing the mashed potatoes he'd made from scratch. "Fine, Dad. Just fine." Daniel's smile was too quick, too bright. Marcus had built enough homes to know when foundations were shifting. Something was coming. He just didn't know his own son would be the wrecking ball. Man, that hurts, doesn't it? When the very people you built your world for start tearing it down? Keep watching. Karma has a way of teaching lessons that lawyers can't argue against. And please, hit that subscribe button if you believe family should mean protection, not profit.
While sleeping in his truck outside a 24-hour diner, Marcus discovered something in his jacket pocket that would change everything. Carol's last letter. The parking lot of Sally's all-night diner hummed with fluorescent light, casting pale shadows through the windshield of Marcus's weathered Chevy Silverado. He'd bought this truck the year Daniel graduated college, thinking they'd use it for fishing trips that never happened. Now it was his bedroom. His back ached against the driver's seat as he reached for his jacket, searching for the bottle of aspirin he always carried. Instead, his fingers found a sealed envelope, yellow with age. By the dome light's glow, he recognized Carol's handwriting. For Marcus, when they come for the house. His breath caught. Carol had been gone 4 years. How long had this been in his jacket? With trembling hands, he opened it. "My dearest Marcus, if you're reading this, then my fears have come true. I've watched Madison change our Daniel, seen her eyes calculate the value of everything we've built. She measures love in square footage and memories in market value. 6 months ago, I had Tom Chen, you remember, my college roommate who became a lawyer, add a codicil to our will. The house cannot be sold or transferred without both our signatures, even with power of attorney. Since I'm gone, that means it's yours alone until you choose otherwise. There's more. I've been documenting things. Check our safety deposit box at Burlington Savings, Box 472. The key is taped under your workshop bench, behind the paint cans. Fight for our home, my love. Not for the walls, but for what they represent. And remember, Sophie needs to know that some things matter more than money. All my love, Carol. P.S. Daniel is still our son. He's lost, not evil. Help him find his way back. Marcus read the letter 3 times, his chest tight with grief and gratitude. Even from beyond, Carol was protecting him, protecting their legacy. The diner's neon sign flickered, and Marcus made a decision. He pulled out his flip phone, the one Daniel always mocked, and scrolled through his contacts until he found it. Tom Chen, attorney at law. It was 2 a.m., but Marcus dialed anyway and left a message. Tom, it's Marcus Whitman. Carol said to call you. I need your help. Daniel and Madison are trying to take the house. Inside the diner, truckers nursed coffee while a tired waitress refilled cups. Marcus walked in, Carol's letter carefully returned to his pocket, and ordered black coffee and eggs. The waitress, her name tag reading Dolores, gave him a knowing look. Rough night, hun? Rough life, Marcus admitted, then caught himself. But it's about to get interesting. As he ate, he thought about the houses he'd built over the years, each one a shelter for some family's dreams. He'd built homes for strangers with more care than his own son was showing him now. The irony tasted more bitter than the diner coffee. His phone buzzed. Tom, awake despite the hour. Meet me at my office at 7 a.m. Bring everything. And Marcus, Carol called me 2 years ago. I've been waiting for your call. You know what? Sometimes the people who love us most prepare for battles we don't see coming. If this story is hitting close to home, subscribe now, because what happens next will remind you that love doesn't end with death, it just changes form.
Hook. Tom Chen's face went pale as he reviewed the documents. Daniel hadn't just planned to take the house, he'd already borrowed against it. The law office of Chen & Associates occupied a restored Victorian building in downtown Burlington, squeezed between a craft coffee shop and an independent bookstore. Marcus sat across from Tom, watching his friend's expression shift from concern to shock to something approaching rage. Marcus, Tom said slowly, removing his glasses to clean them, a nervous habit from law school. Daniel took out 3 equity loans against the house, almost $600,000 total. The words hit Marcus like a sledgehammer to the chest. How? The deed? He forged your signature. Look. Tom slid papers across the mahogany desk, the same desk where Carol had signed her will. These loans were taken over the past 2 years. He used the money for Madison's failed boutique hotel venture and some bad investments in tech startups. Marcus stared at his forged signature, remembering all the times he'd taught Daniel to write his name, first in crayon at the kitchen table, then in pencil for school, finally in pen when he signed his college applications. Applications Marcus had worked double shifts to afford. There's more, Tom continued, his voice gentle but firm. The assisted living facility Daniel picked, Green Mountain, Madison's business partner owns it. They would have been collecting your Social Security, your pension, everything, while claiming it was for your care. The room spun slightly. Marcus gripped the chair's arms, solid cherry wood, reliable, unlike everything else in his life right now. Can we stop them? Tom's smile was sharp as a craftsman's chisel. Stop them? Marcus, we're going to destroy them. Fraud, elder abuse, conspiracy. Daniel and Madison are looking at serious jail time. But, he paused, studying his old friend's face. You're his father. Are you prepared for that? Marcus thought of Sophie, innocent in all this. Then he thought of Carol, how she'd fought through cancer with more dignity than Daniel was showing in perfect health. I didn't prepare for my son to steal from me, either. But here we are. Tom nodded, already pulling up forms on his computer. First, we file an emergency injunction to stop any sale. Then we contact the banks about the fraudulent loans. After that, I want to visit the safety deposit box." Marcus interrupted. "Carol left something there." Tom raised an eyebrow. "She was always 3 steps ahead, wasn't she?" "She saw people clearly, even our own son." They drove to Burlington Savings together. In box 472, they found everything. Recordings of Madison discussing the plan, emails between Daniel and the lawyer, bank statements showing the theft. Carol had been building this case for 2 years, knowing Marcus would need proof, but be too trusting to gather it himself. "My God," Tom whispered, reviewing the evidence. "She built an airtight case." Marcus held a photo Carol had included. Their family at Sophie's 3rd birthday party, everyone smiling. On the back, in Carol's handwriting, "Remember the good before it all went bad. Fight for this, not against them." If you're wondering how greed can poison a family, you're not alone. Hit that subscribe button if you believe in justice, because this story is about to deliver it in ways you won't expect. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is preparing for the worst while hoping for the best.
When Daniel received the cease and desist order at his investment firm, his colleagues watched him crumble like a house built on sand. Daniel Whitman's corner office at Apex Financial Consulting overlooked Lake Champlain, a testament to his climb up the corporate ladder. The morning had started normally: coffee, emails, a partner meeting about quarterly projections. Then Margaret from reception knocked, holding a certified envelope. "This just arrived for you, Mr. Whitman. Required signature." Daniel signed absently, still reviewing portfolios on his monitor. It wasn't until he opened the envelope that his world tilted off its axis. Cease and desist order, fraudulent loans and elder abuse investigation. His coffee mug slipped, brown liquid spreading across his white desk like spilled secrets. Through his glass office walls, colleagues pretended not to notice while absolutely noticing everything. His phone rang immediately. "Madison." "They froze our accounts," she shrieked. "All of them. The credit cards aren't working. What did you do?" "It's Dad," Daniel said numbly. "He found out about the loans." "That's impossible. You said he was losing it." "I lied, okay? He's perfectly fine. His mind's sharp. I needed you to believe it would work." The silence on the other end was deafening. Then, "You lied to me? Your own wife?" Daniel almost laughed at the irony. They'd both been lying, to Marcus, to each other, to themselves about what kind of people they'd become. Meanwhile, Marcus stood in his workshop with Tom and a sheriff's deputy documenting everything. Each tool, each photo, each memory cataloged as evidence of a life built with honest work. "Mr. Whitman," the officer, Officer Martinez, said gently, "your son's in serious trouble. These forged documents alone could mean 5 to 10 years. Marcus picked up the unfinished birdhouse, running his thumb along its smooth edges. "Officer, if your child was drowning, would you throw them a rope?" "Of course." "What if they were drowning because they tried to pull you under first?" Martinez had no answer for that. Back in his office, Daniel's phone buzzed with texts from investors, colleagues, friends who'd heard through Burlington's efficient gossip network. His computer dinged with an email from HR. "Please report to conference room B immediately." The walk down the hallway felt like heading to execution. His Italian leather shoes, bought with money from the second fraudulent loan, clicked against marble floors like a countdown. In the conference room, senior partners waited with expressions like pallbearers. "Daniel," the managing partner, Bill Stevens, began, "we've been contacted by the Vermont Attorney General's office. The allegations against you—" "I can explain." "No need. You're terminated immediately. Security will escort you out." As security walked him out, he passed the break room where colleagues whispered. He caught fragments. Elder abuse, his own father, always thought he was too slick. In the parking garage, his BMW, also purchased with stolen money, seemed to mock him. He sat in the driver's seat, finally understanding something Marcus had tried to teach him years ago. "Son," Marcus had said when Daniel was 16 and caught cheating on a test, "you can build a life on lies, but one day the truth comes like a wrecking ball.
and everything falls down. Daniel put his head on the steering wheel and, for the first time since Carol's funeral, cried. Man, watching someone's house of cards collapse is painful, isn't it? But here's the thing. Daniel isn't the villain of this story. He's just a man who forgot what his father taught him about measuring twice. Subscribe if you want to see how broken people become whole again. Sometimes it takes losing everything to find what matters.
Hook. Madison stood in her empty boutique hotel, watching potential buyers walk away after learning about the fraud investigation. The hotel had been Madison's dream, the Birchwood Inn, a boutique property in Burlington's Arts District. Now it stood half-renovated. Construction stopped the moment the banks discovered the fraudulent source of funds. Madison stood among paint cans and exposed beams, her designer heels incongruous against the dusty floors. Her business partner, Kevin, had just left after a screaming match that ended with him threatening to sue her for damaging his reputation. "You told me the money was from Daniel's investments," he'd shouted. "Now I'm under investigation." Madison's phone buzzed constantly. Friends canceling lunch dates, her country club revoking her membership pending review, Sophie's private school calling about concerns regarding tuition payment stability. She tried calling her lawyer, but he'd already withdrawn from representation. Conflict of interest, he'd claimed, though Madison suspected it was more about reputation management. Meanwhile, Marcus sat with Tom in a small cafe, reviewing the mounting evidence. Security footage showed Daniel accessing Marcus's home office while Marcus was at Sophie's school events. Bank records revealed a pattern of withdrawals timed precisely when Marcus was volunteering at Habitat for Humanity builds. "He studied your schedule," Tom said, disgusted. "Planned every move around your routines." Marcus stirred his coffee slowly, remembering teaching Daniel chess when he was 10. "You have to think 3 moves ahead, Dad," Daniel had said once, proud of winning his first game. "Looks like he remembered that lesson," Marcus said quietly. "Just forgot the one about honor." Across town, Sophie sat in her bedroom, confused why Mommy was crying and Daddy wasn't coming home from work. She clutched the wooden horse from Grandpa, the one that smelled faintly of wood shavings and safety. The doorbell rang, a process server with more legal documents. Madison didn't even read them anymore, just added them to the pile on the kitchen counter, right next to the foreclosure notice for their own house. They'd leveraged everything on the assumption that Marcus's house would be theirs. Daniel arrived home to find Madison packing suitcases. "Where are you going?" His voice was hollow, defeated. "My mother's, in Boston. Sophie's already there." "Madison, please, we can figure this out." She whirled on him, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Figure what out? We're bankrupt, under criminal investigation. Everyone in Burlington knows what we did, what you did." "What we did," Daniel corrected. "You are happy enough spending the money." They stood in their marble foyer, marble they couldn't afford without theft. Two people who'd built a life on someone else's foundation, watching it crumble. "Your father was right about one thing," Madison said, grabbing her bags. "He built that house board by board with love. Ours was built on greed. No wonder it's falling apart." After she left, Daniel walked through their empty house. The mortgage company had already posted notice of auction. He found himself in Sophie's room, looking at her drawings on the wall. One showed 3 figures, a little girl, her parents, and an older man with tools in his hands. Above it, in crayon, "My family." Daniel pulled out his phone and scrolled to his father's number. His thumb hovered over the call button. What could he say? Sorry seemed insultingly inadequate. Instead, he texted Tom Chen. "I want to make a deal. Full confession in exchange for leniency. And tell my father I understand now. I measured once and cut wrong. Everything's ruined." Tom showed the message to Marcus, who read it 3 times before responding. Tell him, Marcus said slowly, that in construction, we sometimes have to tear down to the foundation before we can rebuild. The question is whether he's willing to do the work. You know what hurts most about betrayal? It's not the act itself. It's watching someone you love become someone you don't recognize. If this is breaking your heart, please subscribe. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that redemption is possible even after we've lost our way.
Hook. Marcus stood in his reclaimed doorway, but victory felt hollow when Sophie's small voice on the phone asked, "Grandpa, why did Daddy make bad choices?" The house felt different when Marcus returned with the sheriff's escort and a court order. The walls were the same, the floor still creaked in familiar places, but something invisible had changed. Trust had been murdered in these rooms. Tom helped him walk through, documenting what had been removed. Carol's jewelry box, gone. The grandfather clock from Marcus's parents, sold. Even some of Marcus's tools had been pawned. "We can recover most of it," Tom assured him. But Marcus wasn't listening. He was staring at the kitchen table where just 2 weeks ago, he'd been handed divorce papers by his own son. His phone rang, a Boston number. Madison's mother. "Mr. Whitman, Sophie wants to talk to you." "Grandpa?" Sophie's voice was small, scared. "Are you okay? Mommy says we can't come home." Marcus sank into his old chair, the one Carol had bought him for his 50th birthday. "I'm okay, sweetheart. Are you? I miss you and our birdhouse. Did we do something wrong?" The question shattered him. "No, Sophie. No, honey. Sometimes adults make mistakes, big ones, but it's not your fault." "Daddy's mistakes?" Marcus closed his eyes. "How do you explain betrayal to innocence?" "Yes, Daddy made some bad choices. But you know what? People can learn from mistakes. They can become better." "Will Daddy become better?" "I hope so, sweetheart. I really hope so." After the call, Marcus walked to his workshop. The birdhouse sat where they'd left it, waiting for paint. He picked up his brush and began adding color. Robin's egg blue, Sophie's favorite. Tom knocked, entering with papers. "Daniel's agreed to full restitution. He'll pay back everything, even if it takes 20 years. The criminal charges, the DA's offering 3 years probation, 500 hours of community service." "At Habitat for Humanity," Marcus said suddenly, "if he's doing community service, I want it to be building homes for people who need them." Tom smiled slightly. "You're a better man than most, Marcus." "No," Marcus directed. "I'm just a father who refuses to give up on his son." That evening, Marcus's neighbors began stopping by. Linda from next door brought a casserole. "We heard what happened. We never believed what Daniel was saying about you. The whole neighborhood knew something was off." Frank from across the street offered to help repair the deck. "You helped me build my garage. Least I can do." As word spread, more people came. The community Marcus had built with decades of kindness was rebuilding around him, board by board, gesture by gesture. Late that night, Marcus sat on his porch, Carol's photo in his hand. The stars were bright over Burlington, unmarred by the city's glow. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but he recognized the words. "Dad, I know I have no right to ask, but could we talk? Just once. Daniel." Marcus stared at the message for a long time. Then he typed, "Saturday, 2 p.m., the workshop. Bring work clothes." He didn't say for what. Maybe to clean. Maybe to build. maybe to tear down to the foundation so something better could rise. If you've ever had to choose between justice and mercy, you know how heavy that decision weighs. Don't just watch, subscribe and share, because someone needs to hear that forgiveness isn't about forgetting the hurt. It's about choosing healing over hatred. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is offer a second chance to someone who doesn't deserve it.
2 years later, Marcus watched Daniel teaching Sophie to use a hammer in the same workshop where betrayal had been planned and forgiveness had begun. The workshop smelled of fresh cedar and second chances. Daniel, his hands now calloused from hundreds of hours at habitat builds, guided Sophie's grip on the hammer. His expensive watch had been replaced by a simple Timex, his designer clothes by worn jeans and a flannel shirt that had belonged to Marcus. "Remember," Daniel said gently, "measure twice." "Cut once," Sophie finished, giggling. "Grandpa taught me that." Marcus watched from the doorway, a cup of coffee warming his hands. 2 years had aged Daniel in good ways. The arrogance had been sanded away, leaving something more genuine beneath. "Grandpa," Sophie spotted him, "look, Daddy and I are making a dollhouse." "I see that, sweetheart." Marcus entered, examining their work. "That's a solid foundation you've got there." Daniel met his father's eyes. They'd had hundreds of small moments like this, rebuilding trust nail by nail. The early meetings were awkward, sometimes angry, Daniel breaking down, sobbing apologies, Marcus stern but present, teaching lessons that should have been learned decades ago. Madison hadn't returned. The divorce papers had come 6 months after everything collapsed. She'd remarried quickly, another real estate developer who didn't know her history. Sophie spent summers and alternating weekends with Daniel now, the rest with her mother in Boston. "Dad," Daniel said quietly, while Sophie focused on her hammering, "the community center wants to honor you next week for your volunteer work. They want me to present the award." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "You?" "I told them everything, what I did, what you taught me after. They said that makes it even more meaningful." The workshop door opened. Tom Chen entered with a young couple, nervous and hopeful. "Marcus? Daniel?" Tom nodded. "These are the Johnsons. They're the family you're building the house for." Through the Habitat program, Marcus and Daniel had partnered on a special project, building a home for a family who'd lost everything in a fire. It was their 5th house together, father and son, criminal and victim, united in creation instead of destruction. Mrs. Johnson's eyes were wet. "We can't thank you enough, after losing everything." "We understand," Daniel said quietly. "Sometimes losing everything teaches you what really matters." Marcus added, "And sometimes the things you build after loss are stronger than what came before." Later, as the sun set over Burlington, the workshop emptied, except for Marcus and Daniel. They cleaned tools in comfortable silence, a ritual they'd developed. "I've been sober 8 months," Daniel said suddenly. Marcus hadn't known about the drinking, but wasn't surprised. Pain often seeks numbness. "Good," Marcus said simply, "one day at a time." "Like building," Daniel smiled weakly, "one board at a time." Sophie ran back in, holding the painted birdhouse from 2 years ago. "Grandpa, can we hang this at the new family's house for good luck?" Marcus looked at Daniel, who nodded. "That's a beautiful idea, sweetheart." As they locked up the workshop, Daniel paused. "Dad, what Mom did, the letter, the evidence, did she know about what I'd become?" Marcus considered lying, but they were past that. "She worried you were changing, chasing money like it was oxygen. She said ambition without integrity is just greed with a college degree." Daniel laughed bitterly. She was right. She also said that her greatest hope was that you'd find your way back to who you really are, a builder, like your old man. Just took a detour.
They stood in the driveway of the house that had seen so much: love, betrayal, forgiveness, renewal. The mortgage was clear now. Daniel's restitution payments combined with the settlement from the banks covering the fraudulent loans. "Dad?" Daniel's voice was 12 years old again. "Do you forgive me?" Marcus had answered this before, but Daniel needed to hear it again. Would need to hear it many more times. That was okay. Forgiveness, like houses, required maintenance. "Son," Marcus said, pulling him into a hug that smelled of sawdust and redemption, "we're building something new. That's what matters." Sophie hugged them both, her small arms barely reaching around. Group hug, family hug. Above them, the Vermont stars witnessed what the law couldn't mandate and money couldn't buy. A family choosing to rebuild on a foundation of truth, one measured twice, cut once decision at a time. Marcus looked at his house, his son, his granddaughter. He'd built many things in his 65 years, but this reconstruction of relationship was his masterpiece. The birdhouse swayed gently in the evening breeze, waiting to shelter something new. Carol would have been proud. If this story touched your heart, don't let it end here. Subscribe to our channel, hit that like button, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Because sometimes the most important stories aren't about perfect families. They're about imperfect people choosing love over law, forgiveness over fury, and finding their way home. Every view, every share, every subscription helps us tell more stories that remind us what really matters. Don't wait. Someone in your life might need this story today.